A job is something a person probably spends a lot of their time doing. They can be fun, they can be boring, they can be active, they can be passive, they can be a million different things because there's a million different kind of jobs. The one thing you don't often hear about though is creepy jobs or scary jobs, jobs that would give most people nightmares or phobia attacks. Someone has to do them though. You might not hear about them, but they are being done underneath the surface of society. Today, we're going to bring them into the light. Let's see if you can stomach them. My name is Danny Burke. This is the top 10 scary jobs someone has to do. Starting off at number 10 now, we have field epidemiologists. If you heard there was a disease spreading towards your area, your first reaction would probably be to run. Most people would do that. It's natural. The field epidemiologist has to fight this instinct though. It's their job to head into the center of disease-ridden areas in order to study the disease as it progresses. They travel into the very heart of the storm just so they can understand it and perhaps stop it from spreading. Now, of course, they are usually very well geared up in protective clothing, but that doesn't make them invulnerable. They're often surrounded by germs, blood, needles, and dead bodies. All it takes is one slip up and they're just one more infected person fighting for their life. Next up at number 9 now, we have the police diver. As long as there has been crime and water, people have been trying to hide their crimes in water. That's where police divers come in. If it's suspected that a body is in the water, it's their job to dive down and dredge it up to the surface, no matter what state it's in. Sometimes human or animal remains may have been there for weeks or months. It doesn't matter. They have to get down there face to face with the remains and handle it back to the surface. This is the gross part, but there's also the straight up scary dives too. It's not uncommon for police divers to dive down and retrieve murder weapons and explosives. Police divers need to be very good at diving and deal with conditions that most of us will never need to experience. They have to dive in sludge and mud, underneath ice, at night with zero visibility, in rough seas, strong currents, and water filled with toxins or parasites. If you ever meet a police diver, maybe don't ask them how their day was, for both your sakes. Next up at number 8 now, we have the clinical trial subject. If a drug is released to the public and it cures some disease, it's hailed as a miracle drug. A lot of people don't realize what goes on behind the scenes though. Clinical drug trials involve humans in their later stages. Most drugs are already deemed to be safe by that point, but of course, it's a test. They can never be totally sure until they try it on real humans. One famous example came in 2006. Doctors in the US were testing a new drug on 6 clinical trial patients, all of them male. Soon after, the men began tearing their shirts off and screaming about being in a fever on the inside. Their organs had inflamed and the doctors didn't know what to do. This was the first time the drug had been tested on humans. The animals had shown no adverse symptoms. Cases like this are fairly rare, but I'm sure it's in the back of the minds of clinical trial subjects. Moving on to number 7 now, we have forensic entomologist. This job involves a person studying insects in rotting bodies to try and determine the cause of death or how long the body has been there for. There, I told it to you straight. There's honestly no way to explain that job nicely. Forensic entomologists can learn a surprising amount of information about a body by studying how developed insects in dead bodies are. They can determine if there were any drugs or poisons in the person at the time of the murder and find the presence and time of the infliction of wounds as well. It's impressive they can get all of this from just studying bugs, but the reality of it is pretty grim. Blowflies will lay their eggs inside a dead body. The larvae will then hatch out and feast on the dead flesh. By studying the state of the flies and their larvae, they can develop this detailed picture that can help solve a crime. Could you guys do this job? Could you poke around inside a dead body looking for maggots in rotten flesh? Definitely a no from me. Next up at number 6 now, we have a cryonics technician. Have you ever heard of cryogenics, where dead bodies are preserved in a sort of stasis? Well, that's what this job is all about. The technician is the one who preserves legally dead bodies of people who hope they can one day be revived and cured of whatever illness killed them when medicine improves in the future. Is that wishful thinking? Who knows? All I know is that there are many cryogenically frozen bodies out there right now being monitored by a technician. They don't just check on them though. Oh no, they need to handle the body and inject them with special chemicals to help with the process. Perhaps the worst part is though, they're usually just preserving the head. This is because most people think the brain is the only part they'll need. By the time they're woken up in the future, science will be able to give them a brand new body. Interesting, but perhaps quite off-putting. What do you guys think? Moving on to number 5 now, we have a bush pilot. You know how they always say flying is the safest way to travel. Well, that is true when it comes to normal commercial airlines, the big planes that you use to travel between countries. The same can't necessarily be said for all planes though. Bush pilots fly light aircraft in remote areas that are hard to get to. We're talking places like rural Alaska, many parts of Africa, or the jungles and mountains of South America. Some studies have estimated that in a normal 30-year career, a bush pilot has a 1 in 8 chance of dying in a crash. That is very high. Even when they're trained, they can't seem to fight the stats. The conditions they have to fly in and the planes they operate often catch up to even the most experienced of bush pilots. Next up at number 4 now, we have the bomb squad technician. I mean, this one is pretty self-explanatory. When a bomb is found, even if it's only suspected, a bomb squad technician is called in. It's their job to defuse the bomb and dispose of it safely. One wrong move, one bad snip or fumble, and they're gone, or at least scarred for life. The military and police are increasingly using bomb disposal robots to minimize the risk of human life, but there are some bombs that still require a human to defuse. Do you think you could do it? They receive months or even years of training, but it's still terrifying to know that a bad day at work could mean your last day on Earth. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the broadcast tower technician. I had to throw this one in there for all the people who are scared of heights. Actually, I think this one is so insane that it might make everyone squirm. Broadcast towers are huge, far bigger than a lot of skyscrapers. The KVLY-TV station in North Dakota stands at 2,063 feet high. That's over 600 feet taller than the Empire State Building. Sometimes the systems at the very top of these towers have to be maintained or repaired. That's where these tower technicians come in. They will get an elevator as far up as they can go, but the rest is up to them to climb. They only have a simple harness to stop them from falling off from basically the top of the world. If they get scared or panic halfway through, tough luck. There's nowhere to step back to when you're 2,000 feet off the ground. Check out this video to see what I'm talking about.
This is the tricky part, getting on top.
Next up at number 2 now, we have a CTS Decon Technician. Crime shows have sort of glamorized crime over the years. A murder might be a cool gunfighting scene or a hero killing a villain. Then the scene changes and we all move on. In reality though, that's where this technician's job begins. It's their job to clean up murder sites. If they're lucky, it might be a fairly clean area, nothing too bad, just move the body and scrub some blood. Sometimes though, the scene can be horrific. There could be multiple victims, there could be blood covering every single wall. I've heard some stories that the worst kind of scene to clean up is when the body wasn't discovered right away. I don't want to push the thought onto your minds any more than I have to, but yeah, bodies that have been lying in one place undetected for days, weeks, months, or even years. They can sterilize their hands afterwards, but maybe not their memories. And finally, at number 1 now, we have the Embalmer. This is perhaps the most ancient job on the list, and for good reason. It involves death, something that has been with humans since the dawn of time. The ancient Egyptians used specialized embalming techniques to preserve their dead, in some cases so successfully that we now have well-preserved mummies sitting in museums all over the world. These days though, an embalmer's job is to tidy up a dead body from tip to toe, clean them up, dress them sharply, and basically make them look like they're not dead. Now that's a pretty hard job considering dead people often look very dead. This job is especially needed for open casket funerals. The annual salary for embalmers is thought to be around $45,000 US. That's not really bad at all, but you need to be able to stomach dead bodies and not feel weird about touching them every single day. Well, I got through it. If you're hearing my words right now, that means you did too. Good job. Would you like a part 2? What other scary, creepy, phobia type videos would you like to see next on Most Amazing Top 10? I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are in the world. Thanks as always for watching, guys. My name is Danny Burke, and I'll see you all in the next video.